Who doesn't love dragons? Dragons are everywhere in pop culture lately. We've been telling stories of dragons since the dawn of time. Today we're going to talk about a water dragon, the Ninki Nanka. But first, don't forget to like and subscribe. I forgot to say that in the last video. That's why I had that like and subscribe gif playing at the bottom of the video. It really does help the channel if you like and subscribe. We have over 200 subscribers now, which is awesome, so thank you all. Now, you might be wondering why this video isn't about the Aerosay. Well, this is kind of embarrassing. First, I messed up with the Oribu and forgot that it lives in saltwater, and now this mistake is worse. It turns out that the Aerosay are gods, not a type of fairy or animal. In my defense, I've been really busy and I somehow messed up in my research. Unlike the Matabele, the Aerosay are the pantheon of traditional Igbo religion. For instance, Oshime is the Igbo river goddess, but Ninki Nanka is a different beast entirely. Unlike Niloticus and Matabele, Ninki Nanka is not a primate. You might ask, how a dragon-like cryptid made it onto a list of fairies. There are a number of reasons for this, which will hopefully become apparent as we go along. But first, let me just review really quickly the categorization system. There are 6 categories: animal fairies, plant fairies, heavenly fairies, monstrous fairies, ghostly fairies, and animal hybrid fairies. There are 12 subcategories within the animal hybrid category: avian, hooved, reptilian, insect, ursine, canine, primate, pygmy, simian, freshwater, furred freshwater, and merfolk. Ninki Nanka falls into the animal hybrid subcategory freshwater. Ninki Nanka comes from the mythologies of Gambia, Guinea, and Senegal. They are serpent-like dragons who live in mangrove marshes, but they're not simply relic dinosaurs or something. They have many unique traits. Ninki Nanka are described as 30 to 164 feet long, have snake-like bodies with or without legs, crocodilian bodies or hippo-like bodies, and horse-like faces. Sometimes they are said to have 3 horns, a forehead jewel, feathers, a feather crest, or even wings. The myths are quite varied. They have some supernatural traits as well. Sometimes they can breathe fire, seeing them will kill you on sight, and they can be killed by the sight of their own reflection, which is weird considering that they live in water, which is reflective, and they sometimes have mirror-like scales. Setting that aside for a moment, let's talk cryptozoology, because Ninki Nanka isn't just a part of folklore, but has allegedly also been seen in the modern era. In 1935, locals told a man named Thomas H. Dalrymple about a creature living in the Gambia River. They said the creature resembled a dinosaur. Sightings have continued since then, and in 2006, the Center for Fortean Zoology sent a group out to investigate Ninki Nanka. One alleged witness told them that Ninki Nanka looked like the classical image of a Chinese dragon. Before we dive into the potential biology of Ninki Nanka, I want to put out some other mythological connections I noticed. Their horse-like faces remind me of the many water horses of Europe. Is there a secret lineage of aquatic horse cryptids? The feathers and wings are unusual features, but avian fairies do appear in mythology, sometimes even linked to water, such as harpies. The whole kill-on-sight mirror thing is just like Medusas, who of course have snake hair, and Ninki Nanka are snake-like. Now let's try to make sense of all of Ninki Nanka's seemingly contradictory traits and create an actual animal. Ninki Nanka live in mangrove marshes around the Gambia River in Gambia, Casamance River in Senegal, and in Guinea's coastal mangrove forests. The last one is a little sticky. In Mysterious Creatures, A Guide to Cryptozoology, it's claimed that Ninki Nanka live in the Luta Jalan in Guinea, only there isn't any Luta Jalan River in Guinea as far as I can tell, and the mangrove marshes are on Guinea's coast. Mangrove swamps are a unique habitat, so it's fitting that Ninki Nanka makes its home there. They are tropical and subtropical coastal wetlands in brackish to saline tidal waters. I can only assume that Ninki Nanka live in the mangrove habitats of Guinea, Gambia, and Senegal, and also probably Guinea-Bissau, which is directly between Guinea and Gambia. It would be very odd for Ninki Nanka to live in Senegal and Gambia, but not in Guinea-Bissau, and then pop up in Guinea, especially because Guinea-Bissau also has mangrove swamps. Based on the size and description of Ninki Nanka, I'm going to take inspiration from hippos, crocodiles, and manatees, although Ninki Nanka is significantly bigger than the biggest hippos, crocs, and manatees on record. Hippos, crocs, and manatees live in the mangrove marshes, and so that's why I'm drawing from them. If they are truly as long as the legends say, Ninki Nanka would be the biggest land animal. For comparison, the largest Nile crocodile ever recorded is the man-eater Gustav, who was approximately 20 feet long. We have to look into the past to find any land animals comparable to Ninki Nanka. Patagotitan maorum, the largest dinosaur ever discovered, was 121 feet long. Of course, this is based on one complete skeleton, so we don't know if this was the average size or if this dinosaur was smaller or bigger than the average. However, it's possible that the 164 feet length in some Ninki Nanka reports is exaggerated or inaccurate. In order for Ninki Nanka to have ever existed, let alone persisted into the modern era, it would need to be small enough to remain undetected. While there are many examples of large animals that remain undetected by science for a long time, I think it's improbable that a 164-foot long animal has remained undiscovered, so I'm going to put forward that Ninki Nanka is 20 to 30 feet long. It's worth noting that the extinct African supercroc, Sarcosuchus imperator, was 31 to 39 feet long, so I think that Ninki Nanka's size could be plausible for an animal in this particular ecological niche. We could also look at the snake angle because Ninki Nanka is often described as a giant snake. The biggest snake ever recorded was 27 feet long, and in Congo there's a cryptid snake that's alleged to be 50 feet long. Whether Ninki Nanka is more snake-like or more crocodilian/hippo-like, we can find comparable real-life animals of a similar size. I also looked at the dinosaurs of Africa to see if there were any similarities between dinosaurs and descriptions of Ninki Nanka, and I found two dinosaurs that struck me as similar: Spinosaurus aegypticus and Paralititan. They are large, semi-aquatic dinosaurs believed to have long faces. Could they be described as horse-like? So I've decided my version of Ninki Nanka will have 4 short legs, long thick bodies and tails, snake-like necks, and horse-like faces. They have mirror-like scales that enable them to reflect their surroundings and hide themselves. I'm basing these scales on the iridescent scales of sunbeam snakes and white-lipped pythons. Because they have these mirror-like scales, I've decided not to include the forehead jewel as it would mess up their camouflage. But what about the horns? As it turns out, there are horned snakes in the real world as well as in mythology where they are often aquatic. The Cherokee myth of Uktana is strikingly similar to the Ninki Nanka, and while it will get a video of its own one day, I want to briefly talk about it here. It is described as a great snake, as large around as a tree trunk, with horns on his head, and a bright blazing crest like a diamond upon its forehead, and scales glittering like sparks of fire, which is extremely similar to Ninki Nanka. I would even go so far as to say that Uktana is a North American relative of Ninki Nanka. In the real world, the Sahara horned viper has 2 supraorbital horns, each made of a single scale, and I have based Ninki Nanka's 3 horns on the Sahara horned viper. Some myths give Ninki Nanka feathers, and while there are birds who dive into water to hunt, I've decided not to depict Ninki Nanka with feathers, instead focusing on Ninki Nanka as a reptile. They have 2 eyes, similar to crocodiles, small nostrils located in the middle of the skull, enabling them to breathe while partially submerged underwater, and ears and slits, again, like crocodiles. Ninki Nanka are said to be carnivorous, like the crocodiles that stalk the mangrove swamps. If they're carnivorous, then they're competing with crocodiles for the same prey animals. Perhaps this caused them to go extinct. If they still exist, then their numbers must be very small. Like Niloticus, they may also be spending part of their life cycle in the ocean in order to hide. They have pointed teeth like crocs and Spinosauruses that enable them to eat their prey, fish, aquatic invertebrates, and mammals such as chevrotains. Ninki Nanka are also said to have wings, and as soon as I saw Spinosaurus's dorsal spines, I realized that they could be perceived as wing-like. It's believed that Spinosaurus's dorsal spines aided them in hunting underwater, which is perfect for Ninki Nanka. According to a 2015 Cambridge University Press article, Spinosaurus's submerged sail improved maneuverability and provided the hydrodynamic fulcrum for powerful neck and tail movements. Lastly, their feet end in claws like a crocodile's, and their tails have loosely connected bones that enable them to swim underwater just like Spinosaurus. But what about Ninki Nanka's special abilities? Can they breathe fire? Will looking at one kill you? There's a theory that some dinosaurs could have produced a flammable liquid similar to beetles that can shoot caustic chemicals, so they shoot out this liquid and then spark the liquid with a specialized organ like an electric eel's tail. This could be the source of the legends of fire-breathing dragons. But perhaps there could be an aquatic dinosaur that breathes fire. The Leviathan in the biblical book of Job both lives in water and shoots fire. The Leviathan is described as having strong scales that cannot be sundered, the ability to breathe fire, and is the king of the beasts. And we know that this creature lived in water because of the multiple verses referencing how fish hooks, fish spears, and fishermen cannot harm them. I looked at 3 editions of Job, the JPS Tanakh in 1917, the King James Bible, and the New International Version for my research. All 3 versions convey the same information. Whatever the Leviathan is or was, the text is clearly stating that it was a scaled sea monster that could breathe fire. Let me know in the comments if you think Ninki Nanka can breathe fire. But what about the ability to kill just by being looked at? Could that ability be real? I doubt the creature has to avoid its own reflection in order to avoid killing itself, but I do think it could be deadly to those who look upon it. I've mentioned infrasound before, and when I started researching Ninki Nanka, I thought about it again. Perhaps Ninki Nanka emits infrasound. Those who hear it are frozen with fear and therefore are killed, so it appears as though just looking at Ninki Nanka is lethal, when in reality it is hearing Ninki Nanka that is lethal. This also makes Ninki Nanka more similar to Medusa, who also freezes people by turning them to stone. Now that we've covered all of their abilities, let's talk about Ninki Nanka's life cycle. Life begins in a nest on land constructed of vegetation. Nests are semi-communal, built close together. The mothers and the occasional father rear all of the hatchlings together. The hatchling Ninki Nanka has 11 to 48 siblings, although not all eggs will survive to hatching time. In the real world, the length of egg incubation does not seem to be linked to the animal's size as an adult. Crocodile eggs incubate for 9 to 10 weeks, but the smaller Nile monitor's eggs incubate for 21 weeks, and octopi eggs incubate for the longest of any animal at 4 years. So I'm going to say that Ninki Nanka eggs incubate for 9 to 10 weeks. Ninki Nankas are highly protective of their nests and young. They will spend months secluded away in their nest. Ninki Nanka hatchlings have many predators, and many will not make it to adulthood. Ninki Nanka are very shy, mysterious, nocturnal animals. They are highly intelligent and can be very social, like the crocodiles that they share their home with. As the hatchlings grow, they begin to leave the nest and learn to hunt and swim in the mangrove forests. Crocodiles are highly vocal with complex vocalizations, and it's possible that Ninki Nanka is the same. Perhaps in remote mangrove forests, the chirps of Ninki Nanka hatchlings can still be heard. They reach sexual maturity at 12 years for females and at 16 years for males. Both males and females have horns, just like the Sahara horned viper. Courtship is likely similar to crocodiles, involving complex communications and behaviors culminating in copulation in the brackish water. They take multiple partners, likely to increase the chances of their offspring and therefore their species surviving. Crocodiles are also polygynous. Hippopotami and manatees, who also live in the mangrove marshes, are polygynous as well, so I think it's safe to assume that the same is true of Ninki Nanka. As an aside, just because I think it's cool, the American alligator is monogamous. Ninki Nanka live 30 to 75 years and continue to grow throughout their lives, so older Ninki Nanka can be massive. Older Ninki Nanka use their larger size and life experience to dominate younger Ninki Nanka and claim the best hunting territories and basking areas. They hunt by night and bask during the day, their mirror-like scales sparkling in the sunshine being a stunningly beautiful sight. Now let's talk scientific classification. Ninki Nanka is in class Reptilia. I considered including them in the order Crocodilia, which includes crocs, gators, caimans, etc. And although Ninki Nanka is very similar to them, I feel that they are different enough to need their own order, especially because other cryptids like Uctena will likely be in this order as well. This will be an order for living dinosaurs. I chose the name Relict Saurus, meaning relict lizard in Latin and Greek. The family is Aquasaurus, which is a family for water dinosaurs. The genus Cornigersaurus, Latin and Greek for horned lizard, is specifically for horned water dinosaurs. The species name, Sauros Salmacidus, means salty lizard essentially. This denotes their mangrove habitat. If Ninki Nanka is a living dinosaur, the next week's Nomos are ancient astronaut merfolk who came to our waters long ago.